There is a moment that arrives without announcement. You are sitting in your room, or standing in a crowd, or scrolling through your phone. You scan the names of people you thought were allies, family, friends, and you realize with absolute clarity that no one is coming to help you. No one is going to invest in your vision, push you forward, or catch you when you fall. This realization breaks most people, but for a few, it does something else entirely. The majority collapse into victimhood when they see the empty room. They ask the universe why they must walk alone. They search for explanations, for someone to blame, for a narrative that absolves them of responsibility. They spend years waiting for rescue, for recognition, for someone to finally see their worth. They die waiting, surrounded by people who never intended to save them. You are here because you suspect you are not part of that majority. What I am about to show you is not a path to being liked or understood. This is a path to advancing through a world that will not voluntarily give you space. Machiavelli understood that power is not distributed fairly, and waiting for fairness is a form of suicide. The supported man believes his network is his strength, but he has built his house on the loyalty of others. The unsupported man builds on stone because he has no other option. That stone is himself, and stone does not beg for permission to exist. You were raised in a system designed to make you dependent. School taught you to work in groups because individuals are harder to control. Religion taught you to seek community because isolated people ask dangerous questions. Society taught you that success comes from who you know, not what you can do. These are not accidental lessons, they are structural sedation. You were trained to believe that reaching out is strength, when in reality it is the first surrender. Every time you seek approval, you hand someone else the authority to define your worth. Let me show you what actually happens when you ask for help. Someone agrees to support you, and in that moment, a ledger opens. You now owe them something, even if they claim you do not. They hold a psychological mortgage on your future actions, and they will collect when it serves them. If they invest money, they own a piece of your outcome. If they invest attention, they expect deference. If they invest emotion, they reserve the right to withdraw it and watch you collapse. The safety net you are seeking is also a trap. It catches you when you fall, but it also prevents you from learning to fly. Machiavelli wrote that a wise prince relies on what is in his own control, not what is controlled by others. You are pouring energy into scanning the horizon for someone to save you. That energy is your only non-renewable resource, and you are spending it on a fantasy. The moment you stop looking for a savior is the moment you stop being a victim. What you are facing is not abandonment, it is clarification. The empty room is not a punishment, it is information. If you have zero support, you have zero masters. If no one helped you rise, no one can pull you down by withdrawing their help. If you build your foundation alone, you keep the entire structure when it is complete. This is not a consolation prize, this is the only prize that cannot be taken from you. Machiavelli observed that it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. Apply this to your situation right now. When you seek support, you are seeking to be loved. You want people to approve of your vision, to clap for your effort, to tell you that you are on the right path. This is emotional neediness, and neediness is repellent to power. The powerful can smell desperation the way predators smell blood, and they will either exploit it or avoid it. You must make a fuel transition. You have been running on the hope of encouragement, which is why you stall when encouragement does not come. You must switch to running on something colder and more reliable. Defiance is a fuel that never runs out because the world will never stop doubting you. Every person who ignores you, every opportunity that passes you by, every room you are not invited into, these are not tragedies. They are deposits into your defiance account, and that account pays compound interest. Picture a general who turns around mid-battle and sees that his army has abandoned him. He is alone on the field with the enemy approaching. Does he sit down and weep about loyalty and fairness? Of course not. He assesses his weapons, studies the terrain, and realizes something the enemy does not expect. A single man in the shadows is far harder to kill than a slow-moving army in the open. He becomes asymmetrical, and asymmetry is advantage. Your isolation forces you into speed and intelligence. A corporation with 1,000 employees takes months to make decisions because every voice demands to be heard. You can rebuild your entire strategy in an afternoon because you have no one to consult. You do not need committees or consensus or approval chains. You need clarity and execution, and both of those things are faster when you are alone. The supported man is carrying the weight of other people's opinions, and that weight will eventually crush him. Stop interpreting your isolation as a defect in your character or your circumstances. It is a filter, and filters serve a function. It is filtering out people who would have slowed you down with their doubt. It is filtering out allies who would have betrayed you the moment the stakes increased. It is filtering out the weight of mediocrity that kills more dreams than failure ever has. You are alone because you are being protected from dilution. Now I will tell you how to operate. You must enter what I call the silence protocol. If you have no support, you have no audience. If you have no audience, you have no reason to perform or explain or justify. Most people destroy themselves by talking. They announce their plans and immediately feel a false sense of completion. The brain releases a small hit of satisfaction just from speaking the goal, which tricks you into thinking you have already achieved it. Then you stop working because the reward has already been consumed. Silence creates internal pressure. When you hold a plan inside without releasing it through speech, it builds like steam in a sealed system. That pressure becomes restlessness, anxiety, a physical need to act. This is not a problem to be solved. This is the engine. That pressure is what will push you to work at hours when others are asleep. That pressure will break through the resistance that stops most people before they even begin. The difference between the successful and the unsuccessful is that the successful learned to tolerate the pressure until it converted into motion. You must take a vow. Do not tell your family what you are building. Do not tell your friends what you are planning. Do not post cryptic messages about your transformation on platforms where strangers offer hollow encouragement. Every word you speak about your mission is energy that leaves your body and dissipates into the air. Silence keeps that energy contained, concentrated, weaponized. The people around you do not need to know what you are doing until it is already done. When you work in silence, you also eliminate interference. The moment you share your vision, you invite doubt. Someone will tell you it is too hard, too risky, too late. They will offer you their fear disguised as advice, and if you are not careful, you will accept it. Their fear will become your hesitation, and hesitation is the gap where dreams go to die. By refusing to speak, you refuse to let their limitations become yours. There is a cost to this path that no one warns you about. You will have to grieve. You will have to hold a funeral for the life you thought you were going to have. You thought there would be a cheering section, people who understood, a support system that carried you through the hard parts. That future does not exist. The version of you that needed those things must die, so that a different version can take its place. This grief is physical. You will feel it in your chest, a tightness that does not go away. You will lie awake at night wondering if you are insane, if everyone else is right and you are wrong. This is the test that separates the ones who make it from the ones who return to the herd. Every person who has ever done something significant has walked through this valley. They all wondered if they were broken. They all considered turning back. The ones who did not turn back are the only ones you have ever heard of. You must become your own parent. Psychologically, you are going to perform a kind of surgery on yourself. You are going to look in the mirror and be the authority figure you never had. When you are tired, you will command yourself to continue. When you are scared, you will remind yourself that fear is just data, not a directive. When you want to quit, you will treat that desire as a child throwing a tantrum, something to be observed and dismissed, not obeyed. You will develop two selves. One is weak, emotional, and desperate for comfort. The other is the commander, cold and focused on the mission. The commander drags the weak self through the mud until the weak self stops resisting. Eventually, the weak self dies from exhaustion, and only the commander remains. This is what Machiavelli meant when he spoke of the prince needing a flexible disposition. You must be cruel to yourself now, so that you can be powerful later. If you have zero support, you have no one enabling your weakness. If you oversleep, no one wakes you. If you fail to act, you do not eat. The feedback loop is immediate and brutal, and this is an advantage. Comfort is the enemy of capability. When you have people cushioning your failures, you never learn to prevent them. When you are alone, every mistake lands hard, and you adapt faster than the supported ever could. Let me tell you what to do with the pain. The average person takes their rejection and builds a victim story around it. They say they could not succeed because no one gave them a chance. They frame their failure as something that was done to them, not something they allowed. You are not going to do that. You are going to build what I call a furnace mechanism, and you are going to feed every rejection into it. Every time someone doubts you, dismisses you, excludes you, or ignores you, you place that moment into the furnace. You do not cry about it or complain about it or try to understand why they did it. You convert it into fuel. Anger is a cleaner burn than sadness. Sadness makes you want to lie down and wait for comfort. Anger makes you want to move, to prove, to conquer. You take the energy of the slight and you redirect it into your work. Machiavelli observed that men are simple and driven by immediate needs. Most people cannot see past their own comfort and safety. They did not support you because they could not see what you see. They are operating on a different frequency, concerned with ease and conformity. You are operating on a frequency that prioritizes future power over present comfort. Trying to make them understand is a waste of time. Build your tower so high that they have to look up to see it, and let that be your only argument. When you succeed without support, the victory is chemically different. There is no one to thank, no one to share credit with, no one who can claim they always believed in you. The satisfaction is pure because you know exactly who built it. You walked through fire while others watched and waited for you to burn. They expected you to quit, to break, to come crawling back to the safety of mediocrity. When you do not, their expectations shatter, and that sound is the sweetest thing you will ever hear. But success requires isolation by design, not by accident. Most people are lonely because they are afraid to be alone. You must be alone because you have chosen it strategically. If you are spending time with people who drain your energy just to avoid the discomfort of silence, you are paying a tax you cannot afford. Every hour spent managing someone else's emotions is an hour stolen from your mission. Stop paying that tax. Sit in an empty room. Let the silence become loud. Your thoughts will scream at you that you are a failure, that you have no friends, that something is wrong with you. Let them scream. Do not argue with them. Observe them the way a scientist observes a specimen. Where do these thoughts come from? They come from a teacher who told you to fit in. They come from a relative who mocked your ambition. They come from a culture that profits from your compliance. They are not your thoughts, they are installed programs, and you can uninstall them. Once the screaming stops, you will hear something underneath it. A quiet hum. That is your actual mind, the one that has been buried under the noise of other people's expectations. That mind knows what you need to do. It knows what you are capable of. You have never been able to hear it before because you were surrounded by people who needed you to stay small. Now that you are alone, you can finally hear the signal through the static. Look at collaboration logically. Partnerships dissolve. Friendships end. People get sick, jealous, bored, distracted. Every time you add another human to your plan, you add a point of failure. If your success depends on someone else showing up, staying loyal, or maintaining effort, your plan is built on sand. Machiavelli warned princes against relying on borrowed armies, because if those armies lose, you lose, and if they win, you become their prisoner. The same applies to borrowed support. When you succeed using someone else's money, you are bound by their rules. When you succeed using someone else's platform, you are subject to their terms. When you succeed using someone else's approval, you are a slave to their opinion. The only success that is truly yours is the success you build from nothing, with no one, against the current. It takes longer, it is harder, but it is the only kind that cannot be revoked. You are building a foundation of granite, while others are being lifted by helicopters. The man who is carried to the top has no leg strength. The first strong wind will knock him off the peak. The man who climbed alone, bleeding and freezing, has legs made of steel. The wind cannot move him because he has become part of the mountain. You are choosing to be the climber, not the passenger, and that choice will define everything that comes after. Now let me address the roadblocks. When you hit an obstacle and there is no one to call, most people panic. You will not panic, you will smile. Every roadblock you overcome alone is a repetition that builds your capacity. The man who has a mentor solve his problems learns nothing except dependence. The man who digs through the mud for 3 weeks to find his own solution owns that knowledge at a cellular level. It becomes part of his operating system, impossible to take away. Zero support means maximum education. You will be forced to learn marketing, finance, psychology, negotiation, and production. You will become a polymath not by choice, but by necessity. The specialist is replaceable because he only knows one thing. The generalist who built an entire system from scratch is irreplaceable. You are being forced into a position of competence that the supported will never reach because they never had to. Look at your empty contact list and say this: thank you. Thank you for forcing me to become everything I needed. Thank you for not giving me the option to stay weak. The people who have been disappointed by everyone and are still standing are more dangerous than the people who have never been tested. Disappointment is not a setback, it is a baptism. It burns away the parts of you that were never going to survive anyway. There is something else you must understand about fuel. When you are supported, you run on light energy, inspiration, joy, collaboration. Those are beautiful feelings, but they are not sustainable. When you are alone, you must learn to run on dark energy. Carl Jung called it the shadow. Machiavelli called it the qualities a prince must have but cannot always show. Most people are taught that envy, aggression, and pride are sins. So they bury those feelings and become harmless. You cannot build an empire if you are harmless. To succeed without support, you need controlled aggression. You need the ability to look at a competitor and want to outmaneuver them, not out of hatred, but out of the drive to dominate. You need pride, the kind that refuses to accept a position beneath your capability. You need to stop apologizing for wanting wealth, power, and victory. Those desires are not evil, they are energy, and energy can be directed. Think of your shadow as rocket fuel. A rocket does not fly because it has good intentions. It flies because it creates a controlled explosion at its base. Your darker emotions are that explosion. When you are alone at midnight and you want to quit, inspiration will not save you. Inspiration is weak, it evaporates under pressure. But spite is loyal. Pride never sleeps. Tell yourself that if you quit, the person who doubted you wins. Tell yourself that stopping now would prove them right. It is not noble fuel, but it burns hot, and right now you need heat. Machiavelli wrote that God is not willing to do everything, and thus take away our free will and the share of glory that belongs to us. He is telling you that you are expected to fight. You are expected to take glory with your own hands. No one is going to hand it to you wrapped in a ribbon. The universe does not reward the nice or the patient. It rewards the relentless. Be polite if you must. Be civilized when it serves you, but keep the aggression on a leash, ready to be released the moment it is strategically necessary. Now we come to the most dangerous part of the journey. When you finally succeed, they will come back. The friends who were too busy to help will suddenly have time. The family members who questioned your sanity will claim they always believed in you. The people who excluded you will want to be included in your victory. They will smile and say "we," as if they carried a single stone while you built the entire cathedral. This is your final test. The old version of you will want to let them back in. You will crave the validation of their approval now that you have earned it. You will want to hear them say they were wrong about you. Resist this. Their love is not love, it is opportunism. They do not love you, they love what you have become, and the moment you lose it, they will leave again. You know this because you have already seen them leave once. Handle them with cold politeness. You do not need to be cruel or create a scene. Simply maintain distance. Let them see you, but never let them touch you. Treat them the way you would treat a stranger who wants something from you, because that is what they are. Their affection is transactional, based on your utility to them, and you do not build a life on transactions. You build it on stone, and you are the only stone you can trust. The only people who belong inside your walls are the people who helped you carry the stones. Since you carried them alone, the structure belongs to you alone. This is not loneliness. This is sovereignty. There is a peace that comes from knowing you are self-reliant. That if you lost everything tomorrow, you could rebuild it because you are the asset. Not your network, not your reputation, not your luck. You. So, where does this path end? It does not end. Once you have succeeded without support, you have unlocked a different level of existence. You are no longer the survivor. You are the architect. You now have the resources to build the world you wanted to live in. And here is the paradox. Now that you do not need support, you can give it. You can become the person you wished existed when you were alone in the dark. You can find the young, hungry, isolated person who is about to quit, and you can tell them to keep going. You do not do it for gratitude or recognition. You do it because you remember the cold, but you do it strategically. You do not save everyone. You only invest in people who show the spark, the ones who are already moving, who just need a single push to break through. You become the selective force that the world refused to be for you. Machiavelli said that everyone sees what you appear to be, but few know what you really are. Let the world see a calm surface. Let them think what they want. But underneath you will know the truth. You walked through the fire alone. You built your foundation with no hands but your own. You survived the valley where most people lay down and die. The applause you gave yourself in the empty room is the only applause that ever mattered. You will be tested every day for the rest of your life. The world will try to convince you that you need permission, validation, support. It will offer you comfort in exchange for compliance. It will tell you that isolation is a sickness and that belonging is health. Do not believe it. Belonging is for those who cannot stand alone. You have learned to stand, and now no force on earth can knock you down. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you already knows this truth. No one was ever coming to save you. Power is built in isolation, not applause. The men who rise are forged in silence, carrying themselves forward when encouragement disappears and loyalty runs out. Now tell me in the comments, are you ready to rely on yourself when there is no support, no praise, no safety net? Are you willing to become strong enough that abandonment no longer weakens you? If this message touched you, if it made sense, write in the comments, I stand alone. Let's see how many here are truly ready to advance without permission, guidance, or rescue. And don't forget, keep watching the next video. It's important, much more than you imagine. See you there.